Introducing the official Werx coffee in 3 bold flavors. Fog Navigator, the master of mornings, chocolate and apricot. Texas Pecan, Lone Star Luxury, pecan and cocoa. House Decaf, full flavor, no buzz, smoky dark chocolate. 3 bold new flavors now available at monkeywerxus.com/shop or scan the QR code on screen now.
All right. Good morning, folks. Mil-Spec Monkey here. It's going to be your SITREP. It is 8/28/2023 coming to you live from the Monkey Lounge, and we are going to get into it. We got a lot to cover today. Going to be talking about just stuff going on around the world in terms of the unrest and all of the just critical paths that are taking us down one direction right now, and it's not good. If you start looking at what's going on around the world, failure for governments to basically, or failed states, unrest because people are starting to get sick of their governments and the decisions that they're making and the fact that they're not representing them. And, how long till it happens here? That is the golden question. But I will tell you, when you look at these maps that we go through, it's going to be pretty compelling in terms of what's going on around the world and how much it is increasing. The other thing, too, we're going to talk about these crashes that have happened over the weekend. We just had one pop in this morning, which makes it a 4th. I always talk about things happening in 3s, but I will say we've got 4 going on today, which is pretty rare in terms of, aircraft crashes. And these are military jets, too. So strange things, I tell you, strange things. All right, let's do this. Let's jump over here to our mini board, and you're going to see we've got quite a bit going on, actually. Let me turn off this. I'm going to put on the coffee banner, by the way, at the bottom. It was out of stock, almost all of it, and it is back in stock now. So if you didn't get that coffee and you still want to get it, it is back in, so we get those orders filled pretty quickly. So anyway, we're looking at Flashbang on the screen. We're going to come back to him in just a second. We're going to start off in Skyglass as always, sitting at around 170 mil aircraft up currently. We're going to break it down and deconstruct it, look at a couple specific things. We're going to look at the air refuelers because, again, good indicator of fighter activity. We've already peeled back all of the trainers, at least the Tex and the T-38 lawn darts. Those are equating, we're almost about 80, I think, roughly, maybe a little more than that. But let's do this. I'm going to look at the the Q4 drone, which is 1, Forte 10. That's going to be over in Europe, over the Black Sea. So if we pop over here, you can see that little dude is still up and has been for a little while. But that would not be the Black Sea, probably why we couldn't see him. But again, well, we can't see him anyway. Very interesting that, there he is, way up here in the top, 53,000 feet. So let's do just for the heck of it, let's just look at the trace line and see where he went to. He looked to be currently, if I look at his location, he is sitting about, that's going to take me into my database to process, so give that 1 second, but looks like he's about 10 miles east-northeast of, I don't know what that name is up there, but anyway, he's over Bulgaria. Let's just leave it at that. And they typically are keeping very close eyes on Constanta, and I believe I know why that is, because this is the one port in and out of the Black Sea and the flow of goods coming out of this region that the deep state can control. Okay, so we'll back away from that. Let me hide that trace for a minute. We're going to go back over to CONUS, and then we're going to look at the air refuelers. So we're going to start off with the Pegasus 767-200s. It looks like they're just getting airborne. A 2-ship here, 2-ship there, a single headed down toward Louisiana, it looks like. And then this one looks to be hooking a left, headed southbound, probably towards the border, if I had to guess. But let's see if we have any DC-10s. Not seeing any DC-10s, but KC-135s will be sitting at 13 of those. So it's a little bit of a low number, what we have seen in the past. Up in the Northeast, we have a few. We've got one headed out. Looks to be over kind of the corner there near Tahoe. And then let's see, we've got this one that's just getting airborne near, well, that's actually over Tampa. It looks to be over the Tampa area. So, all right, well, that's where we are on our 135s. Now let me take these back and get rid of the trace lines and then see if we've got anything else that catches my eye in terms of E6s, etc. I'm not seeing, I only got one E6 up right now over kind of the DC area. And then a handful of EC3s. Those are going to be your AWACS aircraft. And yeah, not really. Well, here's an EC. So that's going to be an electronic suite as well. All right. Well, we'll just break away from that. Let's take a look at our watch list. There are some very interesting items up today that we're going to go over. So let's start out here. Notice this. Off of or right over Southern California, that is four. I've never seen four together like this. They are all very tight and over Los Angeles, it looks like, but there are four of those. Those are Mill Intel balloons. Okay, that's NSA that is looking out. And then we've got this one down low, which is also going to be a U-2, which is the NOAA bird. And we're going to look closer at the weather aircraft and then a lot of survey flights still up over the United States. Now, that number is down compared to what it has been over the last 3 days, but it's still pretty busy. Again, survey flights over Florida. And then we have a Glex flight, which that one may or may not be a military application. So we'll keep our eye on that one. Go up a little further north, yet another NSA Intel balloon over the center of the United States, very high altitude. And then we have a B-52, looks to be over Canada, and a Q-9 drone that is just south of Winnipeg. And then let's go over to Europe, and we get a closer look. Brio 66 doing its normal little recon stuff over Kaliningrad. And then those are German Intel balloons. And that is a B703, which is usually call sign Red Eye, but looks to come out of Constanta. And there's that Forte 10 that's up again. In this case, it's showing a south of Ukraine, which is interesting because it's really over Romania. I don't know why they would do that. And then, of course, Turkey and their little drones that are up on a pretty regular basis. Okay, let's look at the Intel aircraft. Just a couple on the board. Notice the move coming out of Biggs Army Airfield to the western side of Atlanta. And then we get up a little north. Those lines, trace lines, are a little hard to see. You can barely make them out, but they're blue coming out of D.C. One headed to Wisconsin. The other looks to be headed to the northeast. And then this, not hard to see these. Again, doing the dance, looking at everything in Belarus. And there's very little stones unturned in that one. And then notice the low altitude in Romania, right? And very corrupt government there, by the way. And then looking closely, it looks like a high altitude looking at Moldova. And then this one into Pakistan. Now, remember, there's a lot of stuff going on in terms of unrest around the world right now. Pakistan is one of those. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here shortly. But and then also notice doing the little man in the middle circle there over Saudi, over that area, the Gulf of Oman area, that little point. And now we're looking at survey flights, 131, which is a lot lower than it normally is. That's about 70 less flights right now. So are they wrapping up? Maybe. You can see some areas they look to be polishing, as always, all the way up to the northwest. Nothing in Canada, which is kind of strange. I guess they got all the data they needed to do their deed here. And then over North Dakota, just notice those very long trace lines. A little higher altitude, too. I thought that was interesting. Some stuff going on over the Carolinas and Georgia, and then Florida, as always. Nothing over Hawaii, by the way. Or Alaska, which we'll keep our eye on, see if it comes back. Didn't search very long over Oahu. I thought that was kind of an interesting deal, probably because it's mostly tourists and Democrats. So let's see. We get up here and Stockholm looks to be, we got some more work there in Poland and then in Belgium. And then we'll go down a little further south. Notice that, again, survey over the water. I find it interesting because we're going to couple that with some of the drone activity between Tripoli and Benghazi as well. And they have that area covered up pretty well. We get down to Australia and just we'll start out off the east coast near Brisbane. Again, continuing to search those areas. Sydney, beating down a path. Again, a little further south towards Melbourne. A little bit of stuff going on in Tasmania. And then here, back it up, see if we get a little, we'll go back in. And Adelaide. And then we go a little bit west out to Perth. And they continue to do the work out there. So that's going to be your survey flights. Now let's talk Ruskies for a minute. And just a little flurry of flights headed up to St. Petersburg out of Moscow and then down south. And that looks to be headed towards Armenia. So what's going on there? Another area of unrest, though, between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Okay. So, all right. Let's talk drones for a minute. And you're going to notice that we've got the usual suspects over Los Angeles looking at stuff, right? And then, you can't have people cutting in on their business, so they got to have eyes on everybody. Nothing else really going on over the U.S., but of course, it's the last 3 days. And then we get over to Europe, drop down a little bit south, and you'll start to see them pop in. We've got the stuff here, again, over the water, a lot of back and forth. And there's Tripoli, there's Benghazi. Remember, this is heavily influenced by the Russians in that general area. That's where the survey flight was. Not a lot uncut or not covered there, should I say. And then the usual suspects over Turkey as they spy on their citizenry. All right, let's talk weather for a second here. We're going to jump over to the NOAA stuff. And I just want to point out what's going on over Southern California, those long sweeping. I'd be really curious to see if the clouds are, if it's hazy or if it is blue skies over Southern Cal. But you can see they're doing a lot of work there. All right. And then we get out of Texas and notice they're headed into Florida. You kind of expect that. We got some hurricane activity out over the Atlantic and then coming into the Gulf area. We'll look at the NOTAMs. That'll show that same outline in terms of where they're flying. And then we got this one, which is to the western side. That's out over, I think, Wisconsin. All right. Now let's look at weather mods. Actually, let me do this. I'm going to back up because I got a data point I want to show you. Check this out from the NOAA perspective. I'm going to hide that, and I want you to see 365-day, 1,626 flights, but just look at the concentration. This is all NOAA, okay? And we're just going to let that marinate for a minute as you look at all the activity. Look at those slots back and forth over the water, over that entire area, just covered up. That's a year's worth of flights by NOAA, the science people. Now, see those little spins and the little turns? Yeah. Telling you, I actually have some cloud cover that some screen captures of them doing that spiral mode that they did right here, where you see these little circles, the little pigtails. All right, that is one of their deployment methods, I guess, for putting that spray out. When you get up here, you're getting close to HARP, so we always pay attention to this. All right, but kick it up on the side. You can see all the different altitudes and everything that's tied to it. Again, this is NOAA. These are the science guys, and these are the folks that are tied very heavily to cloud seeding and chemtrails, okay? And I know I sound like one of those wacky conspiracy theorists now, but I am telling you straight up, It's real, and we've been watching it in recent weeks. They don't even try to hide it anymore. It's absolutely crazy. So look at the different altitudes there. Absolutely incredible. All right, let's do this. Let's jump over to the weather mods now, and we'll get into that aspect. Notice over New Orleans. So if you're getting a lot of weird weather down there right now over West Texas or New Orleans, that may be why. These are Weather Modification LLC. And then notice this little trip right here that runs right along the coast there to the eastern side of New York. And then we get over to Saudi. And I showed you this the other day, that what they had been doing and the chaos that has ensued near Mecca and Medina. But here they are. They're continuing to do weather modifications. So guaranteed it is raining over there with this kind of activity. And it's not just regular rain. It's crazy rain. All right. All right. Now let's talk R135s. We do have one area. I want to show you this. This is R135 over Holloman. And this one is kind of to the right side or east side of Dallas. Between those two flights, that, folks, is a British flight. Okay. That's not a U.S. R135. That's a British R135. Why, you might ask? Well, there are little loopholes that under the guise of Five Eyes that allow them to do certain things and watch U.S. citizens, whereas the United States can't do it, but they share the information. So it could have been a training op, and then they just happened to share the data. Anyway, that's what happened with Trump, by the way, right? Spied on Trump. Well, they used Five Eyes to do it because they were able to look at a U.S. citizen and a president by utilizing other countries to do it. So, all right, well, that's where we are on the R135s. We will also break into, let's just look at this one. This is going to be the UN just the last couple of days. Just notice they're in and out of Ethiopia and in and out of Qatar and, Saudi. Why is that important? Well, we're going to look at that closer as well. And then let me see if I have, here it is, sub-hunters. Let's take a look. In around Constanta near the Black Sea. Then we get up here near the North Sea. And you'll see a little busy there to the northern side of England. But these aircraft have some pretty remarkable capabilities, just FYI. I say that because when you start to see some of the flight patterns, okay, off the East Coast, looks like we've got them looking or talking to something off the East Coast of Florida. That's off Daytona Beach, Cape Canaveral, all right, Broken Traces. And then off the Gulf Coast side, but then we get up here, look at this round, perfectly round circle out over the water. And something off of there also that they're either looking at or talking to. But then you get this one right over Washington, D.C., perfect little man in the middle circles. And if you're not familiar with that term, that is where these aircraft actually become, they're using Dirtbox or Stingray or something along those same lines. And they basically become an airborne cell tower. So your cell phone is no longer talking to a ground tower. It's talking to an airborne tower. Okay. All right. Let's get into it. What we got going on today, we're going to start out over here at Flashbang. And it looks like he is headed to one of the public schools in Washington, D.C. to basically welcome the students back to school. Nothing creepy about that. But remember last time I think we saw a president that sat down and did some school activities was GW around 9/11. So I'm sure they've done it since then, but I'm just saying I always have that in the back of my mind. It could be a deep state play, right? All right, and then here, President delivers remarks at a reception. I'm sure they're going to be beautiful. Lots and lots of word salad out there. And then the 60th anniversary of the founding of the Lawyers Committee on Civil Rights Under Law. All right, we digress. Let's move on. Check this out if you haven't heard about it, but it seems to be kind of more regular than not as of late. Remember, the last time we saw a metric ton of camps popping up around the world was during World War II. All right. And these things are popping up everywhere, folks. And they are multi-purpose. So they come in under the guise of migrants And then they can be repurposed for a lot of different things like outbreaks or maybe keeping people, containing people, etc. So keep your eye on these things because they are popping up all around the world pretty frequently now. But this one ought to get your attention. New York is spending $2 million a month to house migrants on Randall's Island. Yes. Hold about 3,000 asylum seekers, 50% more than expected, and it's going over like a turd in a punch bowl with the New Yorkers, who are not very happy about it. Officials also report that the New York City shelter system is now caring for more than 110,900 people, which includes more than 59,300 migrants, and they're scrambling to find more space to house everyone. Wow, that's strange. I wonder if people are flying them up from the border maybe. So, of course, they get there, they got nowhere to go, but this is what it looks like, a little tent city. You can see all the beautiful little campsites there. This is them putting it together, and then if you get down a little further, I don't have it. I had it. I actually have soccer fields for these folks out in the park area. So, anyway. All right, let's talk about Fragile State Index. This one, notice the colors. That becomes very important, all right? Because when you start getting into these shades of the oranges, the yellows, and the reds, it means that they are basically very high on the index, which means the capability or ability for these countries to basically become a failed state is very, very high. That means when you talk about failed state, that's when you have coups, it's when you have unrest, it's all of that, okay? But this one here, I mean, you can see they're ranked 53rd, and that is orange. Notice the United States is still green. We'll see how that looks here in about another 6 months. But China, you know, they're pretty high on the index, but it's down a little. You get into the middle of Africa, this is where you've seen the recent coups, right? Think about this. This is ranked 24th on the list, and the change is actually a negative 1.8 from the previous year. But what is interesting about that is we actually have a coup underway right now, okay? But these failed states, it just Somalia, I mean, ranked number 1. Yeah, Yemen is also pretty close, number 2, both in that same region. But this is very big because as the economies start to buckle in the United States and in Europe, these folks feel it exponentially because they get a lot of aid from these countries, okay? All right. And then this, I want to point out one of the things here. The current data that we're going to look at has been suspended as of August 5th up until September 1, and then it'll come back online September 4th. We'll continue to watch and monitor it, but there's a lot of important data. This is an early warning dashboard in terms of, you know, how things are trending around the world. Just notice that, you know, you've got things like this where Brazil is actually having a lot of problems. Venezuela, we already knew about a lot of that. You get into the Middle East, very, very active. And then, of course, Africa is also. The color pattern is, or the just basically walk you through what it says here. Large increase in activity are these. So this looks to be having a big uptick. Past week had an event count of 103. Past month average was 65. The real big takeaway here, if you go down a little further, is this is the trend over the last 4 weeks. It's a moving average. Notice the red lines popping in. Those are higher than average events that have occurred, okay? And the trend line is, it was a little bit of a dip, but it looks like it peaked, and now it's starting to kind of dip again. But the big takeaway is if we go into the year over year, take it out, let's go to previous year, let that marinate for a second. What you see is the trend line starting to go upward. And it's kind of, you know, a little bit leveling out, but it is definitely on the uptick in terms of the things going on around the world. And it's basically gives you just a real feel of the state of the world right now, okay? And let's go in a little further numbers just to give you that. It kind of dovetails into this in terms of unrest, okay? Over 400 significant anti-government protests have erupted worldwide. This is all current data. More than 132 countries have experienced significant protest. Okay, so 132 countries out of 200, I think it is, have experienced significant protest. 23% of significant protests have lasted more than 3 months. So these are pretty long endured protests. And then 135 significant economic anti-government protests have occurred since 2017. So everything is on the uptick. Again, we get into the maps and you can see most of it is in Europe, right? Remember, they're experiencing major inflation. They're in the middle of a recession and their energy prices are going through the roof. Thank you to the Biden regime who took out the Nord Stream pipeline. So U.S. is still not crazy, but I have a feeling that's going to change. All right. Look down here into Central and South America, lots and lots going on. Africa, just one giant hotbed. Even Australia is seeing a little bit of it. So it's almost around the world. And again, it's just it gives you your finger on the pulse for what's going on around the world. All right. It's why you need to be prepping because you don't want to have to go out and get in the middle of that stuff. Okay, U.S. military aircraft crashes during drills in Australia. Now, this was an Osprey, 20 people on board. I haven't heard anything else on it in terms of how many had been killed, but several people have been reportedly rescued after that. So that's a good thing. It took place near Darwin, which is on the northern side of Australia. But evidently there was a joint exercise going on between the U.S. and Australia when this occurred, all right? So that's one. Now we get over here to this side. F-18 Hornet pilot pronounced dead in crash at MCAS Miramar. Now remember this Miramar was the location, I think until the, I don't know how long ago it changed, but that used to be Top Gun, and now that moved over to Nevada, so it's no longer there. But this occurred, and what's the date on this publication? But you can see here, let me see if I've got, the 25th. So it was about 3 days ago. So it happened as we were coming into the weekend, and that pilot did not make it. So there's your F-18 Hornets, but there's that. And then we go over to this one, which was interesting. These were trainer aircraft. This is this guy, Ukraine. He's the top pilot in Ukraine, call sign Juice, basically killed during a mission. And he was a MiG-29 pilot. But what's weird is it was a training op, and they weren't flying MiGs. They were flying this other aircraft, the L-39 jet trainer. And I guess the two of them collided in midair, and I don't think anybody survived. So at least 3 pilots were found dead, I think was the deal. But this is the location where this, actually this is the aircraft in question, the two that collided in flight. And then this is the location it happened, which is a surprise to me because we really haven't seen any aircraft flying out here at all from the Ukraine standpoint. This is Crimea down here at the bottom. Kiev right here. Chernobyl would be kind of up in this general region, but this is the territory that it basically ottered in. Okay. And then this one is a little hard to watch. It's not nothing graphic, but this is a life flight aircraft that basically crashed this morning down in Florida. Let me turn the volume down, but you can see him flying. He's got an engine fire, and then as soon as he starts to rotate, it looks like the tail snapped from the heat, and you can see something came off of that aircraft. I don't think that was a pilot. And, you see him basically ottering down. Now, when that thing rotates like that, it typically will break your neck in terms if you're on board of that. Just that rotation, the momentum usually breaks your neck. But yeah, you can see the tail snap on that, and at that point, he's toast, right? No controlling that. It's pretty hard hit. So hopefully there wasn't somebody on there from a care flight perspective. That's when you know it's your time. But mercy, not good. So that's 4 aircraft just in the last couple of days. Like I said, they always happen in threes, but pretty wild to see. All right. All right, let's get over to the NOTAMs. You can see this is what we've got going on. We've just seen that aircraft pattern there with the NOAA going back and forth out over the Gulf region. This is one of the hurricanes out here. This is the other one down here. They expect this thing, as soon as it gets around Cuba, to really start to strengthen. Go over here to the weather radar map, and you can see the latest. It's still just a tropical storm or depression, but it's going to go to Cat 1. They expect it to be a Cat 3 before it hits landfall, but remember, this water temp in here is like 87, it's almost 90 degrees. Very warm, and if there's nothing out here from a land perspective, it's probably going to form and get very, it's going to strengthen considerably in that little short span very rapidly, all right? Okay, and out here to this side of the house, looks like you got another depression coming across, headed towards Hawaii. It's the last thing they need right now, and then all of these storms that are still making quite the ruckus out here. That's a Cat 4. It looks to be headed into China, and then this one also coming inbound towards Shanghai. This one up to the north, and of course this one out over the Atlantic. That's going to be a Cat 4. That is a wave machine right there on the East Coast. And this is another watch area. Looks like we got another disturbance coming off of the coast of Africa. So that's where we are. Not seeing, I know we just had a bunch of bad weather happen here in Michigan. We do have an earthquake that hit up here to the north, kind of to the western side of Erie, Pennsylvania, north of Youngstown, etc. Don't see any travel on the board here from a flashbang or Bob Marley standpoint. All right, so that's where we are. Still got the danger boxes, southern and northern. On the west coast, all the way up the east coast, danger boxes. We go over here to Europe. Let me back it up and see if we've got anything. Looks like some launch boxes here and here. And then if we get down a little further south, I'm not seeing really anything. This is the yellow and the red is turbulence, heavy turbulence, okay? Again, this is the area they're doing all of the weather modification stuff, and notice the turbulence right in here. So, yeah, if they only knew what we knew on that area, they would be not happy. All right, Biggs, Army Airfield. Only thing I've seen so far today was the Eastern Airline came in from Phoenix. That is going to be more than likely immigrant-related. And then from there, it looks to be headed up to Spokane, Washington, to Fairchild Air Force Base. So more than likely taking those folks up there for a rehoming exercise. And I don't mean exercise. Okay, let's see. And then we get over to Dover. We got two 747s coming in, one Chicago, one JFK. One's Coletta, the other is Atlas Air. Outbound, they become camber flights. So they're going to be carrying stuff. One headed to Forward Operating Base RZE Poland and Ramstein. So probably carrying tanks and artillery. Maybe some troops in there. More than likely tanks and artillery, because Ukraine is blowing through it, folks. All right. Now, coming out of Dover, you can see here's the one we're at. This is Ramstein. And then this one coming direct in from Columbus, Ohio. That's probably troops. It doesn't give me an aircraft type. Down a little further, arrival board, scheduled arrival. That's going to be Atlas Air coming out of Baltimore, Washington. And then there's that Coletta leaving there. Don't know where it's headed. And then we've got, looks like a Reach C-17 headed outbound as well. Near, I think it's headed down towards Turkey. All right, here you go. This is going to be RZE Poland, Forward Operating Base. Let's just see what we have. Not seeing, it's German Air Force, Netherlands, Royal Netherlands Air Force coming in. We've got a British flight inbound. That's going to be probably a R-135 or transport. Camber flight from Dover. Who else do we have coming in? Not seeing anything else catches my eye. That right there from JFK could be artillery. All right, and nothing on that side. Let's go over to the departure. See who we have. The Brits, destination unknown, German Air Force headed back to Berlin. Netherlands, destination unknown. And then we've got, looks like an Atlas Air 747, also unknown, headed outbound. Challenger headed over to League, 747. That's it. Nothing else catching my eye here. All right. So a little bit of an uptick, but it looks like they're just bringing in more stuff for them to shoot, like stormtroopers over to the Russian border. All right. This is going to be Constanta. Just got the Wiesbaden guy in and out, Duke 76. That's going to be Army brass. And headed to a place they don't want us to know. And then Forge 78, it's going to be Marine Corps, probably aircraft, little G4. Okay, now over here, U.S. Transportation Command. Notice nothing down here on the bottom of the board, blank, but yet we do have two. One's taking off out of the U.S., and the other's coming out of, looks like it was out of Kuwait. All right. Right. Let's see. The Brits, pretty active today. Down, coming, that one looks to be coming out of Cyprus, headed to, it's in Jordan right now. Actually taking off out of Jordan. All right, so it's headed to Cyprus out of Jordan. And this one, that's weird, kind of a trace line there out of kind of the heel of Italy. Not really sure where that's coming from. So let's just go through the board here. That one's coming out of England. This one's coming out of England, another England. So 3 Englands, one near Alexandria. That is going to be Egypt. And then maybe that's where that came out of. Maybe. I don't know. No, that came out of, it looks like it's out of Jordan. But, and then 2 other Brits. And then RZE, Poland. There you go. Forward operating base. Okay, I only have one current NATO bird up, not showing on the screen, and coming out of Leipzig. All right. It's only aircraft, but not showing. Inconsistent data. Omni rolling out of Guam, and then the other Manchester to Toronto, again, moving the Canadians back and forth between the 2 countries. All right. Then we've got National Cargo, both 747s coming out of Anchorage, Alaska. One headed to, looks like Chicago, and the other, well, I say that, Las Vegas is the other. So we got a Hong Kong. This is some strange data going on today. Notice, again, the board down below in terms of what's listed on the board isn't really matching what's in the air. So there's one, either some of them are missing. We show more in the air than we do on the board, or vice versa. Just some strange stuff. So 2 flights out of Anchorage, one headed to JFK, one headed to, it looks to be Chicago. One coming out of Las Vegas. I don't know who SSC is, South Carolina. And then it looks like another one out here that came out of Tacoma, Washington, Seattle. I say Tacoma, Seattle, Washington, and then headed into, that's China. Hong Kong. All right. Okay, nothing for Western Global. Kind of unusual. And then we get over here to our immigrant machine, and that's going to be a fun flight. That's running right through that tropical storm, headed from the prison down to Bogota, Colombia. Yeah, they'll probably be very happy to get off that plane once it goes through the eye of the storm. And then it looks like Harlingen from... let's see. Let me go down to the board here and see what we have. Valley, San Antonio, and this one. Again, they're not all matching, because that one right there landing at Harlingen is, that's Valley Harlingen, but that's a different flight. That's this one down south. And Columbus, Georgia, headed into Harlingen, not listed. So again, this is the immigrant machine moving around. So, all right. Well, listen, folks, that's going to do it for our SITREP today. Again, there is a lot of unrest and stuff going on around the world. You've got a lot of very likely failed states on the horizon that we need to pay attention to, because that typically will end up in some type of unrest. All part of the plan. If you go look at the Great Reset model, this is all they talk about, between immigration, war, and failed states. So, all right. buckle up. It's going to get interesting. All right. That's it, you guys. Keep that powder dry. Stay frosty. We'll talk soon. God bless. Monkey out. Thanks for watching, folks. Check out the latest gear and products over at monkeyworksus.com.